everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Team Lead Talks podcast. I'm your host, out of Alexandria, Virginia, Andrew Becker. On today's episode, I have my new friend, Chris McGeady, who is the founder of the Close Smarter Academy. Welcome, man.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me. This is great.
So, Chris, let's get right into it.
Good. How you doing?
We just got to chat. I think there might be a little bit of a delay here, so I apologize for that. But we just got to chat a little bit kind of pre-show.
We'll fight through it.
Yeah, I learned a lot about what you have going on. So for those people in my audience that might not know you yet, can you give us just a little bit of your background? I know you're a firefighter. We can see that in the background. That was awesome. But tell us like who you are at an 80,000 foot level, and then we'll get into the Close Smarter Academy.
Absolutely, yeah. So thanks again for having me on. As you can see, like you said, I was a firefighter for just about 20 years, and my backdrop did not look like this a couple of weeks ago. And it's like this because of my wife. She said, you cannot go on these podcasts with just a plain background.
It looks good. I like it. She's a good designer.
It came out really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And fun fact before we move on, this flag was made by one of the guys in the firehouse. It's made completely out of fire hose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I would not have been able to tell that if you didn't say that. It looked like 10 to me.
Well, yeah, it does kind of, right? Well, we're getting the sun glare too. But yeah, so I retired out of the firehouse right around 2016 or 17. And that's when we started our real estate journey.
Awesome.
Full credit to my wife. She, out of high school, which was an embarrassingly long time ago, when we graduated, and she had gone to one of those, hotel seminars where they have the free real estate and then they upsell you millions of dollars to.
I've been in too many of those, Chris. Yeah. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So she went to that and she had kept all the material from it. And she said, I've always been interested in this since I was in high school. You should check this out. And maybe it's something we can do like after you retire, because I was going to retire after 20 years and I'm going to be in my early 40s. So, I'm not going to sit around and do nothing. So I needed something past my fire career. And I looked it over, seemed interesting. I believe I'm fighting through the two names, but the two big ones back then were LeGrand and Sheets, right? So I want to say it was the Carlton Sheets.
Okay.
And it was the old school, before technology. You had the index cards, and you kept names on index cards for your buyers and your sellers and whatever you were attacking at the time. And then you put the ads in the newspapers. For those that are younger than us that don't know what that is, it's basically a phone on paper.
Yes. I was going to ask you to define a newspaper, especially one that you get, like we used to get this delivered to our house to you guys, for those of you that are much younger than us.
You ever wonder if people watch the old movies when there's a paper boy flinging the newspaper out and they're like, was that a normal thing for people to just throw their trash in people's driveways? Yeah. Like, no, there was news on that. So we followed that up until the point it terrified us, which was a kind of a funny story. We put some ads in the newspaper, we got some calls, but we ended up actually talking to a realtor and putting a $500 deposit down on, this was 2014, putting a $500 deposit down on a property that we wanted to flip. It was vacant. It was one of those like stereotypical vacant houses that you're going to see on HGTV.
Yeah. And
when we put the offer in, she called us the day later, and we had put a couple offers in prior, but this one looked like it may go somewhere, because she called and said they're interested and they'd like to counter at this price. And for whatever reason at the time, we didn't do any studying past that binder that she had. The fact that this was becoming real terrified the hell out of us. Yeah. And we backed away and said, keep the $500, we're out. And we didn't even touch it. And it wasn't until 2 years later, right at the tail end of my career, that we kind of dove back in. And I said, I want to try this again, but I want to do it right. Right. So we looked online, we reached out to some people and asked if they were doing this full time or if they're doing it part time, just somebody to latch onto and learn from. And through Bigger Pockets, which we all know, I found somebody local to me. He lived about 20 minutes away, asked him out to lunch, bought him a meal. We sat there for about 2 hours. I picked his brain. And long story short, with him, he became our first partner in our first two deals that we did. We split them, and that became real. That became 1,000% real. And then now I was bought in. I was like, all right, this is how you're supposed to do this. So
can we touch on that for 1 second? You did.
Yeah.
This is awesome, because a lot of people listening might not have done a first deal yet, right? Or they're struggling to find deals. But you reached out to someone in your local community after finding them on Bigger Pockets and striking up that conversation. Fortunate enough that you took him out to lunch and you got to meet him person to person, which is also great. And then you just mentioned something casually, but you did your first two deals with this person.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
what did that look like? How did you find the deals? Was it like a 50-50? Can you walk us through like the
Yeah.
mechanics of that of those two deals?
So when he agreed to work with us in the beginning, he basically acted like a mentor slash coach
Okay.
in that we would have conversations with him and he would give us these little baby steps because he's like, I don't really have a coaching program, but I'm willing to teach you because I learned from somebody. So he said, take care of this first. You need to bring me a house and then we can decide what we're going to do with it there. So I said, well, how do I bring you a house? Like, where am I searching? And our first deal came from a car magnet. We went on Vistaprint, and at the time they sold these like $20 car magnets. We got a Google Voice number. It was free. Threw that on there. Said, we buy houses. Give us a call.
Like
Slapped
on
it
for
on the
the
side
back
of
of
our
your
car.
car?
Yeah,
Okay, so you're like a driving billboard.
that's it. We were driving billboard.
Okay, okay. So
And
that's how you got your first lead or deal?
yep,
Very cool.
our first deal cost us $25 plus
Nice.
shipping.
That's pretty good ROI. Or I
Yeah,
guess
right.
I assume you made money on it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that one, that's like I said, that's when it became real for us. We made 15,000 on that, split it with him, more than happy to. I mean, we just made a month and a half of my firefighter salary in like 3 weeks. I was like, okay, all right, we're going to do this some more.
Very cool. Okay, so that's how you got your first deal. You did two deals with this mentor slash consultant slash coach. And then what happened from there? Like, what did you do next? And what was your exit strategy? I guess I'd be interested to learn, like, as you started to progress into deals 3 through, however many else you did, how did you determine your exit strategy and what that was going to be?
So we always got into this wanting to flip, and that's it. That's all we knew. It wasn't until we talked to him that we knew what wholesaling even was. And we still weren't really too interested in that because our excitement came from flipping the house. We wanted to do what they were doing on TV. We want to take that crappy house and make it really nice, take a
Right.
bunch of pictures of it, and everybody's like, wow, look what you did to the house. That was our goal. So those first two deals were at the end of 2016, and those are the two we did with him. Coming into 2017, we started to put some marketing in play at a small level. We did get introduced to somebody through one of the meetups that he referred us to. It was about 15 minutes from us. We met our next mentor, if you will. And then we worked with them for probably about 2 years and really handheld us through the process of what marketing looks like. If you want to truly make this into a business and not like a side hustle, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do on a weekly basis, monthly basis, daily basis. And so we started to drive for dollars. That's the only thing we did in the beginning is we drove around neighborhoods. Mel and my wife would drive around and I would write addresses down in a notepad. And I think the one weekend we were so excited about doing it. Like the manual labor part of it didn't even seem like work. We were having fun. We knew
Yeah.
there was something cool on the other side of this. So I
Very
think the
cool.
first weekend we drove around a city, Downingtown is near us, and we collected like 400 addresses. And it took us a little while. We were on a pretty tight budget back then, but we would send out 50, maybe 75 letters, and we hand wrote them a week.
Wow. Okay.
And then that's our nights turned into. We have an old picture of it. I'll have to dig it up at some point. We have an old picture of our living room just covered in envelopes and papers, and we're just sitting there watching TV and stuffing these envelopes. And
Very
that's how
cool.
we got probably our next 5 to 10 deals were all from driving for dollars.
That you're bringing back some joyful memories for myself too. It kind of just reminds me when you say you drove around through life. I started my company with my best friend from middle school. We've known each other for like coming on 30 years now. We used to go put up bandit signs at like 4 a.m. so we
Yeah.
didn't get caught, do like that kind of stuff. And we would drive for dollars. And you're right, man. It doesn't feel like you're working because you're having fun. You're chatting. And then it's always like, man, if we do this consistently enough, we will get a deal and the juice is going to be worth its squeeze. And then what we did after that is we took the revenue from those two efforts and we started. Do you remember yellow letters when those were like all the rage? That yellow, you have to send
Yeah.
yellow letters. We did that with someone dude in Pennsylvania, actually. I forget his name now. His name was Jerry, actually. I don't know
Was
if you
that
know
right? Okay.
a mailer named Jerry in Pennsylvania or not, but he would send mass quantities of yellow letters and we did that next. That was our third iteration of lead gen, if you will. But yeah, you have grind right behind you. I remember the grinding days, man, where you're doing everything by hand because you just couldn't afford not to,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
couldn't afford to pay someone else to do it for you. Cool, like really cool story. I love hearing stories like that. Now hearing about like how successful you've gone from your very start to where you are today. So walk us through that progression, if you will, to now you're kind of rocking and rolling, you're flipping. How did you make the transition to what you do today? And can you tell us more about Close Smarter Academy?
Absolutely. Yeah. So from that time on, we were doing about, I think we did 6 deals our second year. We did 12 years, the 12 deals the year after that. And then we really hit some momentum in year 4 going into year 5. And we did, I think, 25 flips plus wholesales on top of that. I don't know what the end number was. Let's say
Yeah.
40. And climbing, which is great. But we were also adding a lot of overhead. We were adding a lot of team members, and we were learning business as we went.
Yeah.
I mean, I attribute pretty much my whole life, my old career to, I'm a risk taker. So I dive in, and if something's going to go wrong, I'm going to find out after the fact. So that's kind of how we worked our business in the beginning.
Okay, cool.
Not the right way, not the way I would advertise to do that, but that's how we did it. So what happened there is we were riding this high because the market was just crazy good. And then we all know what happened in 2020. Pennsylvania was one of those states where realtors were not an essential, whatever they called it back then. You're not an essential person.
Like personnel or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So we had to get really creative. We were in 3 or 4 flips at the time. Realtors weren't allowed to show houses.
Mm-hmm.
So they were coming up with, some of them were coming up with creative ways to list them. Ours, unfortunately, wasn't. So we were doing like Facebook Lives as open houses and just finding a way to move these things.
Right.
But blessing in disguise, because it allowed us to slow down for a little bit and see what we had going on. So we were able to like manipulate some things with the team, scale back a little bit, and that probably saved us in the interim from like bleeding cash.
Yeah.
So then once we had gotten over that and things got back to semi-normal again, we put some more flips on the board, and then we started flipping again. And then the interest rate hiked. So we went through that ebbs and flow twice. Small. I mean, it's nothing like some of the stories I hear, of course, from like 2008. There's some horror stories.
Yeah.
But we went through our own iteration of it.
Right.
And at the second iteration, we were into 3 flips. One of them was giving us a hard time with the township was requiring some stuff from us that was going to take a lot more time than we had thought. So we fully expected to either break even or lose money on this property, which happens. But we had these 2 over here to leverage that. But as time went on, of course, that leverage started lessening, and there's the stress from it. And my wife was like, maybe this is a sign we should take a break again.
Okay.
Well, at the same time, this was about 2 years ago now. At the same time, I had 2 different companies reach out to us from just different meetups we either met at, from speakers at our meetup that we host, or meetups that I spoke at and did some sales presentations. They reached out and said, we're getting ready to hire. You guys have been through this maybe once or twice now, the bad, the good, and the ugly. We want to hear it all. And the one guy had sat down with me and said that that's not his gig. That's not his part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd be willing to come on with him and like train his sales guy, he said, I know you have your own business going on, but if you wouldn't mind like taking some time and at least like feel him out, see if you guys can work together. Like I just need some help and I don't know what else to do. I was like, sure. So I sat with him, and the guy was great, and I said, how many salespeople have you been through? Because I mean, we went through our fair share too.
Yeah.
Because side note, being a good leader and a manager are 2 different things. I think we've heard that a couple of times.
That's a whole nother podcast episode.
Yeah, so I said, I feel your pain. Just because I can do it doesn't mean I can manage it. But maybe I can teach it, but it doesn't mean I can manage it. So I know where you're coming from. So I was able to sit with this guy, and I worked with him for about 5.5 months. And we would meet twice a week. I would review his calls with him, and simple things. He would either come to our office or we'd get on a call like this and review the calls. We'd scope out missed opportunities. Maybe we could have said that there. You missed a chance for a follow-up question there, and just constantly work with them. Very important that the person on the other side is, one, receptive to it, and somebody that's coachable is going to take it and run with that. They're going to use your information and actually use it.
Yeah.
So, and we tracked his progress over 5 months, and he was good. He fit the culture. Great guy. He's still with them, but he was closing about 30% of his leads, which is fairly decent. But now I check in with him from time to time, and he's closing 60% every month over month.
Chris, was that kind of the start of your coaching, like your education part? And were you getting paid to do this out of curiosity, or were you just doing it out of the goodness of your heart? Like, how did that all come to be?
You think it would have been? It took me more than one. It took me the next guy to start the coaching.
Gotcha.
The next guy combined with my wife saying, look, I think you're meant to do this. You should do this
Yeah.
as a business.
Cool.
But we had a unique setup, him and I. Uh, Short backstory to that, the guy that reached out to me for help, I actually helped him build his real estate business. So I was his bigger pockets guy in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
in
Yeah. You're passing on.
the early
You had a
days. Yeah.
mentor from Bigger Pockets. Now you were that mentor.
Right, right.
Got it.
So now he was ready for a sales guy. He reached out to me. We did some. So he would pay me off of the contracts that we got. We would JV it because we still had the wholesale company. So
Yeah.
anything we had under contract, we would end up disposing it for him.
Okay. Okay.
And that was kind of my payment because he's like, I don't really have the capital to pay you like an upfront fee. And I said, that's fine. Let's work something out. We did. It worked for both of us. And that's how we did that.
Very cool.
Looking back, he probably wouldn't do that again because I did pretty well.
Yeah.
But so
he
did he.
probably
So
could argue that he wouldn't be in the place he is today without that. So it was
Sure,
well
absolutely.
worth the investment, I think, and a cost of goods sold it none the least. So it wasn't out of pocket; it came out of the contract, which is always great. It's always a
Right.
win.
Yeah, so it was the wholesaler after him, which actually got referred by him to me. I started working with his guy, and then when we had some success from him, that's when I said, that I'm really enjoying this, and I get new energy just like I did 10 years ago when we started flipping. Let me dive into this and see if I can help more people. So I never really put myself out there as being this
Just kind of
until
happened.
recently, but
Yeah.
I'm having a good time with it now.
Yeah, man, we were sharing before the episode the education part and learning and teaching it's really fun and fulfilling for both of us in our current careers. So you started the Close Smarter Academy, Chris. Can you give us just a high level like who you help, what that is all about, and if someone wants to learn a little bit more and talk to you, like how do they get in touch?
Absolutely. So what I do now is I work mainly one-on-one. I do one-on-one coaching. It looks like most of the coaching programs, right? We do weekly calls, we do call reviews, and I pretty much modeled my coaching program off of those first two wholesalers that I helped. What worked within, that's how I kind of molded my program. We just started implementing some small group coaching. Small, I mean maxing out at like 5
Okay.
people.
Yeah.
And the intention was to really gear it towards investors and realtors. But just recently I had an opportunity to work with a contractor, which seems like it's working out really well.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to keep it niched, but at the same time, like I see the opportunity we work with each other anyway, right? The contractors are working in the real estate space and vice versa sometimes. So I saw the opportunity to help him, and that seems to be going well. So I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing product, but right now it's just really just investors and agents.
Okay. And specifically, if someone listening right now is like, I want to make sure that this is a program for me, like who's your avatar? Who's the person that you're looking to help? Newbies just trying to crack into the business, or, novice kind of already rocking and rolling, but just trying to streamline and scale?
It would be novice. So I'm not necessarily geared towards the newbie. I'm not teaching sales, I'm coaching sales. It's different, right? So, and the way I say that to people, what's the analogy? The analogy I use is, Michael Jordan was great at his sport, but he still needed a coach. That's kind of where I come in. It's the person that's doing a few deals a year. They understand how the process is supposed to work, but they're struggling somewhere. That's the
Yeah, you're
person.
not teaching them like, here's what wholesaling is. They've already kind of learned it. And so it's not from, the ground zero.
Yeah.
Like start. Okay, cool. And then Chris, how can someone learn more about Close Smarter Academy, or if they want to learn and see if you would be a good fit for them, like how does somebody get a hold of you to chat?
To say the two easiest places to get me is on Facebook. You can just look Chris McGeady. You can look up me directly on Facebook, or my website is wintheclose.com.
Wintheclose.com.
I don't know how I landed that URL, but I got it.
Dude, that's probably worth a pretty penny, man. So hold on to that. Make sure auto renew is on for that one at like
It definitely
or
is.
wherever you have that. So cool, dude. I appreciate you sharing your story. I always love hearing that kind of stuff. Again, I resonated with a lot of it, and hopefully people listening out there today can as well. Chris, before we part ways, what is one resource, whether it's a book, a checklist, a PDF you can share, anything that someone listening now that if they're listening can better their life, their community, or their business?
I could say as it pertains to the life I'm living in right now with the sales coaching, because that's kind of where my world revolves around. I remember a book that I read early on. He was actually a guest at one of the sales boot camps that I went to. for the life of me, I'm blanking out on his name, but the name of the book was The Like Switch. And
Light, like light bulb, light switch.
like I like you, but
The
it's
like switch. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
There's a couple different things that I really like. I know a lot of people do virtual sales. I'm still privy to the belly to belly, and it goes into not only process and conversation, but also body language, which I think is fascinating.
Cool. Is that Jack Schaefer?
Yes, there you go,
Okay,
Jack
cool.
Schaefer.
Yeah, I asked that question to everyone at the end of these podcasts, and then like 2 or 3 days later, I get a stack of books, and my wife is like, "Please stop ordering books. It's all we spend our money on." But I think I have that one. I just want to go check, but I'm going to order that one. That looks really cool. So yeah, if you're out there and Chris just kind of explained it, pick it up, and hopefully it'll change your life or at least a strategy to it.
He's very, not to cut you off, but the presentation you made was pretty fascinating. It was down in Tampa. You remember John Martinez did sales
Yeah.
trade within our niche for a long
I
time.
went through his
Oh, did you?
training once
Okay.
upon a time. Yeah.
So there's a presentation he did there, and I would relate him very closely to Chris Voss because his background is very similar. He did a lot of hostage
Yeah.
negotiations, and
Yeah.
it was a fascinating presentation that he made, and I got the book on the spot.
Very cool. Dude, this actually, I just had I was talking with Brad Chandler from Express Home Buyers. He gave me a book. I'm reading the Jack Schaefer book cover, and it says with Marvin Collins. He just gave me a book that's really cool. Also, ex FBI body language specialist, called
Nice.
What Every Body Is Saying. And it has a foreword again by Marvin Carlins, who is also in that whole world. So this would be, and I'm reading that right now. So this is going to be a fantastic, after I'm done with that one, I'm
Oh,
going
there
to
you go.
and
Well,
start reading.
now Amazon's going to be showing up at my front door.
Yes, exactly.
I got one to read.
Yeah. Well, very cool, man. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story. It's an incredible story, and I'm glad that we got to connect.
Yes, thanks for having me on. This was great.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, you too.